I'm recording.
And now, Rob.
Welcome to another edition of your favorite show, Full Spectrum Universe. We're all here every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Without exception, without disregard for anything, we are always here. We have a great show tonight, as per usual. Always we do what we do. Everything is always how we make it happen. So as of tonight, I just wanted to we're gonna be bringing in somebody we actually just were with the about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. He had his premiere show last night. He is going to come in and co-host with us. We have no set plans for tonight, so you are going to hear an absolute rant fest, which is going to be truly incredible. Because the thing about the difference is that when me and this gentleman rant, Mr. Eric, First Earth Militia host, Deciphering My Experience host. When we rant, it's factually based ranting. It's things that we know to be true. If it's speculation, we say it's speculation. We flag that so you can take it as you wish. So without further ado, let me introduce Eric. Eric, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Rob. Thank you very much for having me tonight. I do appreciate being on this network. It's a beautiful thing. I did have my first show last night, and it was fantastic. I had a blast. We had a lot of interaction with some of the other hosts and some guests from the audience, and it was a great first step in a new adventure. So I'm really looking forward to where this is going to go on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a diversity of information in mind. So it's a lot of fun so far.
Oh, it definitely is. It definitely is. Like I always tell people that when you're looking at Global Enlightenment Radio Network, especially at globalenlightenmentradionetwork.com, that has archives or brings you to the YouTube page, which has just an insane amount of episodes. There is something for everybody. There literally is so many different types of shows that if you can't find something that may spark your interest, then you're not looking to enjoy podcasting, broadcasting, or any type of semblance of talk radio. That's my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot in the bucket to pull from. So I mean, I recommend people come take a look. I'm happy to be here. I think my info has value, and the more people that I'm exchanging with is great because we all, I think, get to add a little bit more support to each person's position. I guess if that makes sense. We don't all have all of the answers, but through interconnecting, we can help each other like shore up our ideas and things like that.
I agree. I agree. And the great part about that is like we always talk about how there needs to be this like, the people who have this knowledge are the people who really delve into research or really try and find answers to specific questions and or a cacophony of questions that all have to do with the same subject. There is this semblance of connecting dots, right?
Hmm.
So when we try and connect these dots, we get to this place where things really they seem a little bit different from the perspectives that the people give to each other in details. Now this makes a full circle so people can literally look at all aspects of any subject per se and see it from people who, like, if we're, let's just for an example, right, let's look at UFOs.
Hmm.
So we have a ufologist, a paranormal investigator, um, somebody who is either a medium or a psychic, somebody who has secret space program. Um, they'll say some kind of either knowledge or cooperation with, not willingly, but cooperation with. We get so many different sides of that specific type of, like that platform that it really gives you a full understanding of all sides of any subject.
Yeah, it's good to get that full spectrum on it, right?
That's exactly right. That's what this show is all about.
Mhm.
We literally we run the gambit. We talk about everything. It's not just paranormal. It's not just ufology. It's not just politics. It's all of it. And we can get into any subject, multiple subjects on any show.
I think that's kind of the better way to look at things, actually, because if you're too singular on something, then you're going to miss a bunch of stuff, I gather. So you have to have a broader perspective on things and take stuff from outside and bring it into the fold. So I think it's cool that we have so many voices on so many topics in one location.
I agree. I agree. So what's on your mind tonight, man? What's some of the research you've been doing lately?
Oh,
Fill us in.
I've mostly been digging through and organizing. My research has been a little bit on the standstill, but the cool thing is I've been going through some of my junk. I guess it's like, what have I come across? Like this, I just came across. This is inside here. It's my video camera from when I was at the South Pole Station. So I came
Oh wow. I
down
bet you
that.
found some stuff on there that was
Yeah,
just like you almost forgot about it.
I didn't even look in it yet.
Oh
Like I
man,
just
there's
found it in
probably
the
a
box the other
plethora
day. Yeah,
a
so like
plethora of great stuff in there. I
yeah,
would only imagine.
I did open it up and just take a look at it, and it was just like memories and stuff like that. And it's a rinky dink old Best Buy store brand insignia camera that at the time I didn't think much of. It was 2010, but it turned out it wound up being this savagely awesome camera that really, I mean really went through the test. That thing spent a year at the South Pole Station, and it's probably mostly comprised of hot glue at this point because it fell apart so many times, and I'd be picking up the parts in the ice and the snow outside to bring it back in. I mean, it wasn't made for those temperatures in the slightest. I'd have that thing outside at minus 80 degrees ambient, and it would freeze solid. I'd just be, holding it in my hand, filming, and parts would just be falling off of it. Like it's
Wow.
just because it was
Wow.
so cold, things would just come apart. And I
Well,
would
I get
glue it
that.
back
I get
together.
that.
So
I get that.
I do look forward to seeing what I can do with that thing, and with this studio stuff that I'm trying to set up here. It'd be cool if I can actually incorporate that into the mix again to rebuild my South Pole camcorder once again. Would be fun.
Well, I'm on what that little kick too is I'm looking into different new cameras.
Mhm.
Personally, I want like a 4K, like high ultra frame rate, just like an insane camera. But I don't want to spend, $3,000, $2,000. What I want to do is find one of those like really good deals, and I'm waiting for it. I have everything put aside for it, but I want to find like those really good deals so I can essentially have a camera that's portable in
Mm,
case I do have to go to, if there's some kind of something going on in the streets or for a specific interview to be brought to somebody's, residence so I can do these interviews,
mhm.
just something like that. I think that that's important because really it's just like I want to be able to be mobile at the same time.
Absolutely. I actually just scored this really cool camera. Um, I'm trying to read it. It's the Q2N 4K by Zoom. You,
I
you
think
need
I've heard of that one.
need to
I think
check
I've
it out
heard of it.
because what you do actually requires very high audio, and
Right.
most camcorders and cameras GoPros have crap audio.
Right.
They give great video, but crap audio. So this is actually made by Zoom, which is technically a sound company that does audio work for musicians and stuff. But they set up one of their little it's a stereo mic set with a camera on it. So
Right.
it's a pretty cool deal. It was just a hair under $200. So it
What?
can be battery
That's great.
operated, it can be plugged into a wall. It has an HDMI output, so you can use it for a live stream cam as well. And it fits in your pocket.
That's awesome
Yeah,
because
got better
what
sound
like
than anything you'll find.
I'm gonna if even if we are mobile, like I'm still gonna have like a soundboard and
Mhm,
I also want to get one of those. There's two different mics I'm looking at too. It's like a Shure SB7 or I think it's called an M50. I forget what the hell it's called.
mhm,
One of those. It's one of those crazy ones, but they're like a $400 microphone too. Because what I heard is that if I get this specific type of dynamic mic,
mhm.
it'll accentuate my deep voice, which you have to be like super close to it though. You got to be like on top of it when you
This one
talk.
I have to be pretty close to. Um, it's a condenser mic, from my understanding. I'm not an AV guy, so I am rattling things off of my head that I have read or somebody else said. Please don't take my word for this. Re-corroborate everything that comes out of my mouth right now. This is a new direction for me. But from what I understand, this condenser mic that I have to be really close to it. If you want a much better microphone, my research has found there's a company called Rode, Rode, and they have what they call a podcaster mic. They're $99, and people are swearing that those are the best things ever. They're just actually so awesome, and the reviews are so good. Good luck finding one for sale. They're all sold. That seems to be the problem right now.
Really?
Correct. I can't find one on the face of the earth.
That's wild because,
Mm.
you know, to me, I think that like the studio setup when I'm doing my thing, like I think the studio setup is a big deal. So to customize it the way what we're talking about, I think I think it's hard to say. I think you need to have that setup, like that setup that you're comfortable with, that accentuates all the aspects of what you want to do with it.
Mhm.
But also, I want to be able to get into the video editing side, so I can take video,
Mhm.
break it down, make commercials, or little things like that, so we can help
Totally
people.
understood.
Right, help people promote properly, and
Mm.
get all that done too. So I also that's another reason why I need that soundboard and some of those programs.
Mhm.
Like I have a 5 terabyte external hard drive.
Mhm.
It's for all my shows to back everything up. But there's a lot of stuff that, I really want to do besides just be on the air, behind the scenes as well.
It's hard to produce if you don't have the right tools, and that's one of the things that I was speaking with Odin about. That as a tradesman, I like doing good work, but this is a new direction for me. The whole broadcasting and production. I mean, this is not a 2 foot wrench environment as far as I'm concerned. This isn't something I can pull out my 11 and 1 and start tightening something up on. So I'm learning as I go. But what everybody is telling me is that it's sound. Sound matters.
Well, it
So
definitely does too. And you have a deep voice like I do. So I know you got a condenser mic, but they told me that a dynamic mic is the one that like it's not crisp or clear. It just accentuates the bass a little bit more and it sounds rich. This is a
totally.
condenser mic too, just like I got here. It's the first one I bought. But this is sort of the one that's like more like I forget what I read about it, but it's something about one's more for like the tone of music and the other one is more for voice.
Or
But they're both exceptional. Like they both have their high points. You know what I mean?
absolutely. Is that a USB mic?
Yes.
That's one of the things that I learned too, is that you're not going to get what you're looking for out of that equipment. You're doing everything through the laptop.
Right.
So a laptop is like a leather man in the AV world.
It's all like set
It's a
settings.
multi-tool.
There's no up and down to the levels of it or the reverb
And even the
or
wiring, you're trying to put great sound through a teeny little wire. This thing here is like an actual,
right.
it's
You have
it's real
you have it
sound cord.
into
It's
a
an XLR
soundboard.
cord.
That's the
Right.
difference.
It
I know,
matters.
see, I know that because I went to school for audio engineering.
10-4.
So the audio engineering is like I know microphones, not so much like I'm not great with the mics, but the actual soundboard. I mean, I've worked on a 64 channel mix board doing
Mhm.
piano work with trumpets and brass and violins and it was wild. Like I did a
Yeah,
whole orchestra in a studio room.
so you can't argue the value of the tools in that trade.
Right. But here's the other part of that too is with these USB mics through these wires, there literally is a hum that we can't hear, but the audience may hear it on certain occasions.
Oh, I
If
got
we
you.
hit a level that's a certain pitch,
Mhm.
they will hear that bleed through, it's called. Also, with a soundboard, you have what's called a gate. And a gate basically senses when you're getting that to that high point and shuts you down.
Yes. I
And
have I have that on my soundboard because I know that I can get loud and I can get passionate, and there's a time that I might hurt somebody's ears. So I actually have that selected so that I can't get too loud and too animated to hurt people.
And also, if you have that one mic set to 2 channels, you can do, like, your panning, so you can sound omnipotent in the sense of, like, omnipresent as opposed to straight ahead.
Yeah, I've been playing around actually because I have a couple of mics available, and I was doing some stuff where I had both mics hot, but I wasn't really speaking into one of them directly. I just had them both in proximity, and it's really interesting how you can get different sounds with all these different tools. I mean, it's a new trade. I'm playing. It's actually a lot of fun. All of this gear and the buttons and the dials. Um, it is what it is. It's new tools and it's fun to do. I'm really enjoying what I've been communicating with Daryl and this in the radio network and stuff and all the potentials. So it is fun. I have optimism for where this is going.
Oh, it definitely is a lot of fun. And one of the things that I also used to love was like an auto pan feature, right? So let's say you're doing like a segment where it's somebody and they're supposed to be talking to this entity that's tremendous, supposed to be bigger or larger than life. That auto pan makes them go like if you have two bat going like this, it sounds like you're waving in and out like whoa, 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 whoa. Like it's there's so many things I could tell you to do that would just freak your mind out, like if you're doing a commercial or something. I mean, I truly love audio, which is one of the reasons why I went into it.
Cool.
But the thing that sucks is that I did interning in like actual recording studios. It was called Hot Sound Studios. And it wasn't a big studio. I went through school. I had like a 3.5 average through the Institute of Audio Research. But what happened was this guy was like low level. I took an internship at a bad place. This guy used to smoke weed and not give a rat's ass about anything. So what happens is one day we have this guy comes in and this guy is doing gospel music. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I was actually taking my own clients at this point. I wasn't getting paid for it, but I was taking my own clients. So I'm in the middle of a session. This guy knocks on the door, the guy who owns the studio, and says, I need you to clean the piss up in the bathroom floor. The guy peed all over the floor. I looked at him and said, are you serious? Like, I'm in the middle of doing a reggae song. And if you know reggae, reggae is one of the hardest pieces of music to put vocals to sound, like to actual music. And when I tell you that we were like in the middle of like just a killer session, and I literally like the artist is like, why are we stopping? Like, because I have to go clean piss up off the floor. Meanwhile, this guy's paying to be in the studio.
Hmm.
Like, he did not appreciate it. Kind of gave me almost a bad name
Hmm.
because he wouldn't work with me anymore. And then the guy running the studio got mad at me because he didn't want to work with me anymore. It was, and I walked out and said, you know what, you can go, you can go straight, you go, screw yourself, man. I'm not doing this no more. Like, but it hurt me in the long run because in the music business, it's all about who you know.
And a
Now,
lot of businesses are like that, but you're right. It's what are you going to do? And bosses have a tendency to have ego issues and character flaws often enough, like most folks. But they're the ones that are cutting the checks, and oftentimes they're quick to cut off their nose despite their face.
and that's yeah, absolutely. And the crazy part is now I'm not behind the mic. I'm not in front of them, like the background. Now I'm in front of the mic, like on it,
Mhm.
instead of being behind it. You know what I mean? So I guess that it's good to know that stuff, but I was meant to be right where I'm sitting right now, not on the opposing side. But so it's a pretty wild thing. Penny Bradley's in the audience. I want to say hi to Penny. She's saying hi
Hey,
to you too.
hey, Penny.
So yeah, I mean, so let's just throw out a topic. Let's get into it, man. What do you
Well,
got on your mind right now? Well,
I
what?
came into your show today, and I know that you're a fan of the paranormal. So
Yes,
I recalled that I have a very interesting story from my childhood in the paranormal capacity.
let's do it. I'm excited. Let's go.
No problem. So I grew up in the suburbs of Long Island in a community known as Levittown. And this was when we were grammar school age, bicycle riding, just punk kids rolling around the neighborhood, just looking for other kids to hang out with and have fun. That type of stuff. I would gather we were maybe in the vicinity of 8 to 10 years old. I would gather, and we had this kid that lived a few blocks away from us, maybe 4 or 5 blocks away. Quick bike ride. He went to my grammar school. He had previously lived rather far away and had moved closer. So this was like, a cool thing. Kid from school moved closer. We went to Catholic school, so not everybody lived in the neighborhood. So this kid moved in nearby. So we started hanging out at his house. Big family, big Irish family. lots of kids in the house, and then every kid has a few friends over. So there's always tons of people coming and going. And we started to hear that the house that they had purchased was haunted. That the one of the prior owners, I forget right now if it was the immediate prior owner or even before that owner, but somewhere recently in the history of the home, a child of the family had committed suicide in the house, was the story.
Oof.
One of the kids had committed suicide upstairs in the house, and that room was now my friend's bedroom. And it's all it became like folklore, and it was one of these things we would tease my friend about. Not the end of the world, but it was what it was. We knew about it, and we would rib him. But one day we were at his house, and we're sitting in the living room, and they had a centrally located fireplace. And I don't know if you've ever seen, or if you recall, or if anybody in the audience remembers. They were we called them Spanish paintings. They were like these fluorescent colors on them. They were like black and kind of gaudy looking, but this was like this fluorescenty looking weird like 80s graphic depiction of Jesus Christ next to a lake, with his hands up, doing a standard Jesus pose, and
Right.
people on the other side of the lake that he's preaching to. And we're down in the living room, and upstairs in the bedroom, um, my friend's dog had a litter of puppies, and they were up there yapping away like puppies do. And we're downstairs just being kids. I don't know what we were doing at the time, but all of a sudden, at some point, someone looks at the. I'm sorry. Somebody said that the noises of the puppies upstairs started to sound like voices. And we all kind of just paused, and we're listening. And it did start to sound like a muttering, like a talking. It switched. And as we were sitting there listening, all of a sudden somebody had chimed in, and they went, "Oh my God." And they looked, and they said that the the Jesus was on the other side of the painting now. It had switched.
Like he went to the other side of the
Correct. Jesus was now on
lake.
the other side of the lake in that photo with his arms up, and we were just starting to key in on that and get into like a collective agreement of like, yeah, he's right. That like, what the hell is going on? And then at that point, all of a sudden, the puppy noise upstairs went from a considered muttering. Now it's straight up sounding like people upstairs talking, like a lot of people upstairs talking.
Wow.
And we just all started looking around at each other, and it was getting louder and louder and louder. And we were kids. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. And we ran out that front door. We like blasted through the storm door. Like it wasn't like a hit the handle, and like there was like a ton, like maybe 7 or 8 of us at the time. Actually, that wasn't a ton technically, but we had like 7 or 8 kids. We flew out that front door, flying across the front lawn. All the bicycles are laid out by the curb. We were like skidding to the grass to get to our bikes. We couldn't be running any faster, panting on the ground, doors wide open, flipping out. And I don't remember who said it. It could have been me, someone else, but I remember somebody saying, "Should we go back inside?" And
No,
then
not at that age.
from inside the house, clear as day and loud, we heard no. I got on my bicycle with my friend that lived around the block from me. We rode away from that house, and we never, ever, ever went back.
Never went back to this house for
I
the rest
never went
of
back to that house ever again. Not after that day.
Wow.
Not once. Never thought about it. No reason to. That was still my friend. We would hang out anywhere else in the world. Not going to your house. It is haunted.
That's a crazy situation. That really is. Like that's one of those things that happens that like like it has an effect on your life in a sense that you're like you never went back there. I
I never
mean,
went back there. That totally happened. I have a dead recollection of that event. I would go to the grave that that's exactly how it happened. I know a couple of the folks that were there. I remember riding home and coming across other kids from the neighborhood on their bikes. I remember who they were, and they were like asking us, "Hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing?" And we told them we were flipping out. We're like, like, get out of our way. We gotta go.
that's crazy. I mean, I wonder now, like, if I knew about it now, we would be able to like, if we knew back then what I knew now, we'd be able to look at some of the situations on it. What exactly was the purpose of that? Now, if you said a gentleman committed suicide,
Mhm.
right? So my thought would be is how far back. Sorry, my girlfriend came through the door. I was like, "Who's that coming through the door?"
You gotta
But
have priorities.
uh, like, how far back would there be deaths in that house? Because if you heard talking upstairs, like multiple entities talking at one time,
Mhm.
it's like, wow, wait, okay, this changes the situation a little bit. And then you saw almost like an illusion of Jesus being on the other side of the lake. That's that's wild. That's wild.
It was
That could
peculiar.
have more of a holy side recollection to it, as in maybe it was that entity, or maybe it was some kind of angelic intervention where they were upstairs with the puppies or away from everybody, and Jesus had moved in the painting to signal that I don't know to signal
For
something. It's a
some
strange
reason, I
thing.
feel like the sound of the crowd upstairs, and I'm basically just going off of gut feeling recollection. It sounded to me like what would have been like the aftermath crowd, all the detectives and cops in the house being full.
Maybe.
That's like like that was, if I had to put my finger on it, that would be like what the crowd sounded like, people talking about what went down.
So
Oh, it's blah blah blah,
here's my thought on that now.
Mhm,
Sometimes when a horrific accident happens or something really bad happens in a house,
mhm,
and there are multiple people, not multiple people, but there are people around in and around the time of that happening, there is this residual energy that sits in a room and
mhm,
kind of leaves an imprint
mhm,
on the room.
mhm,
So maybe with all the people being there, your energy's charged up the situation a little bit.
mhm,
And with the puppies, the dog was going through an experience. The dog has a spirit like everything else does. We
mhm.
could tell by looking into their eyes. Most would agree with that, but they have conscious a little bit. They feel bad, they feel good, they have emotion. So they do have a soul in a sense. And for in my point of view, but I think most would agree with that. But maybe the trauma that the dog was going through after having this litter, on top of you, the energy of children is, if you were a young boy and you had a bunch of people going in and out, that situation could be amped up by the energies in the room too. So this imprint of either there's two theories you could look at it. It's either a paranormal experience that's in residual energy, or there was a alternate dimensional timeline coming close to our timeline or our verse of reality now, and there was a bleed through moment where, because if you think about this, right? Think about time. Time is not, it's relative. It's
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's it's malleable. So if we're on one timeline, okay, and then there's an alternate dimension, it could be 1955 in the alternate dimension. Time might work differently, or it might be at a different point in time. So when these occurrences happen and this bleed through moment from one dimension to the other, we're seeing what it would have looked like 1955, just like it happened here, it happened there.
Mhm,
There are realities that are very similar, all but one little thing is off from our actual reality, and there's some that are totally different.
mhm.
Like it scales because there's so many different ones that it scales, you
Yep.
know?
And
Just
it's
thought.
something to do with these edges. No, I follow you, and I agree. There's more to our standard five senses perspective than what's going on. I mean, that's that much I know. I have a lot of wide berth to ask a lot of questions. I can undermine a lot of positions that exist right now of how people speculate reality is, but we can also drive trucks through that logic. It doesn't mean that I have the answers. It just means that I'm happy to keep looking and communicate with fine folks like yourself so that we can try to connect the dots and for what I think is a better picture.
Oh, thank you for calling me fine folk. I
Ah,
like
no
that.
worries.
I like
We are a
that.
New Yorker.
That's it, man. You're fine folk yourself. So, like, things like this are truly intriguing too on so many different levels because there really is it could be a paranormal side
Mhm.
or it could be a quantum physics side or like
Yep.
there's that gap and probably a few things in between that we're not exploring because it's not coming to us
Yeah,
at
right.
this
Right now, it's
particular
like
moment.
it's one thing to consider the things that you know in a way that you know you don't know, but then there's always the things that you'll never know you don't know, and you can't even calculate that into the equation. So you already know that you're off by that much at least.
Right, right, but it's fun to explore. That's
Oh,
the difference.
absolutely. Yes,
You
because
know,
it still brings us closer to the truth because we know that the position that we're at right now certainly doesn't answer everything that we need to know. It's not the truth. We're not there yet.
absolutely. And one of the things to take away from this story as well is that you should always question everything.
Mhm.
Should always look at it from and that's why, what we were talking about before about seeing things from different angles, right? So that's the importance of doing these data sets from different angles because they correlate no matter which way you throw it all the data found in these situations correlates in one frame or another or one way or another and that's truly the interesting part of I'll tell you too like I did a show on a Saturday 2 weeks ago
Mhm.
where we went from paranormal to timelines, to the Mandela effect, to ufology, to ancient history, and we just like I felt like, excuse me, I felt like we went through like the gambit of everything. But
Mhm.
I was just bringing things to light that I believed, and as I was talking about it, I found similarities or coincidences that happen almost between them and how one subject directly connected to another subject if you put this sequence together by discussing it.
Mhm.
So it's definitely something to explore at any time too, because you could look at anything from like I said, it was incredible when I watched it again, and I just found out that I can use YouTube on my TV.
Mhm.
So now I sit there and watch my show
Uh-huh.
that I did on the TV. As vain as it may sound, I do it to critique myself to hopefully get better the next time.
There
I
you
look
go.
out for
I mean,
I look out for things where I'm like,
you gotta
oh,
test your work.
right, or I go, uh,
Mhm.
like I find those little idiosyncrasies to make it more professional every time I get on the camera.
Rob, I do the same thing. I watch my own work to critique it. I'm a professional at anything that I do. I want to do well. It is what it is. I mean, call me old fashioned, I guess, folks.
No, that's you
I just
should be that way. If you want nobody is perfect and nothing is ever perfect.
right.
But you can still strive for perfection. Doesn't mean you're going to come close or even get to the mark.
Mhm.
What you're doing is you're sharpening that knife. So the next time you cut into that butter, it slices right through. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm a betterist. I've always lived under the term better is better. There's always a better way of doing something. We can find a better way to do it, more efficient, whatever you want to call it, cheaper. There's always a way, once the task is done, to look at what you did and figure out a better way to do it.
Exactly.
I'm a
Exactly.
betterist. Every single time I complete something, I want to do it better the next time.
I like that. I like that. A betterist. I've never thought about it like that. I do
Yeah,
like
I'm not a
that. That's
perfectionist. I can't do things perfectly. I'm never going to
nobody
do things
can.
perfectly,
Nobody does.
but I can do things better than I did last time.
Right. It's like that saying too is if you reach for the stars, hopefully you land on a cloud.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like it's very difficult to get there, but
Mhm.
at least you land on something nice and soft, or at least I like to take pride in my work too. Whenever I do anything, it's always people say 100%. I try and go 120. I try and be as professional as I can
Mhm.
and as knowledgeable in any subject that we're talking about as I can.
Mhm.
I love to go in. If somebody sets up a show and they give me a topic, I will look at that topic from not just one angle, I'll do it like I'll do mainstream research on it, and then I'll go like deep dive research on it, conspiracy theory on it, or theories that are not tested and proven on it, so I
Mhm.
can get an understanding of what of the whole subject, you know.
I
And
would
that's
actually like to kind of pick your brain on
go
this
ahead.
topic because you're more of a paranormal expert than I am aware of, I gather. We're all learning, who does
Hmm.
what. Well, then I gather.
All right, all right.
Um, so I have experiences. I mean, my channel is deciphering my experience. I'm trying to figure things out and I'm trying to connect with folks because I respect that your knowledge and stuff is different than mine. But I want to bounce some stuff off you to I guess just feel your thoughts, okay?
Let's
So
do it, man. Let's
like
do it.
we were saying before with this story of my friend's haunted house in the past, right? So there was a what I would call a death energy involved, which I would say is strong. There's traumas, like you were saying,
Yep.
and I respect that there's something going on there. I don't know what, but there's something going on. So now, with that being said, that happened in my youth. From that point until now, I have been at the site of people dying,
Hmm.
their literal last breath, so many times now that I've lost count. I used to actually keep track of it and count it because I was amazed at how often it was like, wow, I can't believe this happened again.
Right.
Hey, whoever I was friends with at the time, girlfriend, whatever, just come home, tell us, hey, guess what happened today? I was driving and such, but long story short, my entire life, I happened to be there at that moment. And I've been communicating this to folks, and they told me, this is other people's words that I have been trying to decipher my experiences through. They told me the term is a reaper. They said, you're a reaper. They said, that's your skill set, and it's your job to be there when these people are passing, to give them some sort of comfort or words, whatever it is. And I'm just curious, have you heard of anything like this? What are your thoughts on death
I
moment
haven't heard of
energies?
anything like that, but to me, and I can only keep it on the eye, a reaper is not somebody who's you're like the witness. Okay. I would say maybe like the witness,
Mhm.
because a reaper to me is
I didn't like
somebody,
the term.
well, that it's also, you know, you're not helping them get to the other side. You're
Mhm.
just there in a way that calls to power the end. You witness the end, right? Or there
I
or
There is more
or
communication going on.
there is communication
Oh, there's tons of communication.
between you and that person.
Yes, absolutely. When you said
But
I don't help them to the other side, I would disagree with that. I actually
well,
I do get
maybe halfway, but you can't personally go to the other side without dying yourself.
Oh, understood. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in the waking state,
Right.
these people are frazzled,
Hmm.
say the very least, and I certainly calm them down.
Okay. So you're like a prep guy. You're a prep.
They were calling me a reaper, and they
But
were saying that I helped them transition to the other side, and I couldn't argue the activity. I just didn't like the title.
I get that. But let's take a look at ancient texts,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
Let's say these things, right? Like so in the ancient mythologies, the person's spirit used to go to a place where a boat would come, and
Yeah.
either they pay or they stay.
Mhm.
That's what they do. They either give their penance to this entity that takes them across to the other side, or the underworld, as they called it.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is Greek and Roman. What happens is you die. Something like a reaper comes to you and brings you to this place. This place is, I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but this place is the shore. It's a dock. You wait for a boat,
Mhm.
right? Now, the only way you can get on the boat is if one of the gods vouches for you, or you have gold and give gold to the boat driver.
Mhm.
And if you give gold to the boat driver, he will take you to the underworld. Because back then there wasn't a hell or a heaven. It was underworld, living world, and the middle, like a
Mhm.
almost like a purgatory, the middle or in between. So if you're looking at that, they classify the person who was driving the boat, the reaper almost.
Mhm.
He was in essence a tall man, skeletal in form, with a big cloak, with the sickle.
Mhm.
He drove the boat. So there was an entity that met the soul upon death at the place where the soul had died and brought them to the reaper.
Mhm.
So the thing to me is that a reaper, in definition, as I see it from studying, is the person who brings you to heaven, hell, or the underworld.
Mhm.
You can't go that far. So you lay witness to the transformation of shedding of the physical, and they're transcending into the conscious energy, shall we say.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you're like taking them halfway. Somebody else has to pick that journey up to take them all the way home into the infinite consciousness. But it also goes back to what you believe too, because there's the infinite consciousness. Some people believe we shed the physical, and our brain or our soul isn't. It's energy, so it gets reabsorbed back into the universe, so the infinite consciousness,
Mhm.
right? Therefore, you would need nobody. All you would need is like somebody like you, who calms them down, so they can raise their vibration enough to shed that physical and become ethereal, right? Then
Mhm.
there's the paranormal side of it, where you know you're helping them feel at ease with crossing over, right? So you're giving them that confidence to step into the light. Therefore, that light is the tunnel to heaven,
Mhm.
right? Catholic faith. Or if we go back to ancient times, you're the guy who leads them to the boat.
I think I like what you're saying a lot. I'm
Mhm,
familiar with these storylines, but I also come from an angle that I do believe, and you've
mhm.
probably seen this in antiquity, that a lot of the stories they're like 99% true, and then they twist them a little bit to give us a little bit of work to do to find the actual truth, that they're not going to print the whole truth. That I'm very familiar with this story of the river and the boat and the passing.
Or what about this? Native Americans
Mhm.
feel that when they pass away, their soul literally is on this plane,
Mhm.
right? It goes to this plane of existence where they wait for a white horse to come and pick them up,
Um,
and that white horse takes them to wherever they're going to be. Or
yes.
let's look at comic books,
Mhm.
right? We can even look at comic books. If you're we'll talk about Black Panther, right? Black Panther is the head of Wakanda. Wakanda is an advanced nation. Their ideology says that if you are the king of Wakanda, you go to this place where it's the other side, but you're on a tree. And all the panthers or all the they all the kings become panther-esque in like ethereal form, and they all hang out on a tree together. But the human, by going into the red sand, can see that side or communicate with them, right? I'm not saying that that's any truth to that, but
Mhm.
sometimes art mimics reality, you know?
Fair enough. That does happen. I'm thinking of this situation now because I don't know. Are you familiar with the Comte de Saint Germain at all?
I'm not. Tell me about it. It might be. It sounds
He's
familiar, but I'm not
he's an
sure.
interesting character in history that is he's been called a time traveler, soothsayer. He's considered to be ageless, immortal. It's an interesting character, but he wrote a book. He's also, you're familiar with things like ancient mystery schools and things like that, and initiations. And I get this whole idea of the crossing of the river or the waiting for the white horse and these types of teachings. And they have their value. But there are other teachings that would say, and this is stuff that I learned from the Comte de Saint Germain. In a similar fashion, his version of that story and the river crossing is slightly different. That to get on the boat of the Grim Reaper, to allow him to cross you over the river, is not going to bring you to the right spot. That's a trick. That the water is actually shallow and traversable. That it looks like you need the assistance of another to get to the other side. And it's a trick because they're not taking you to the correct place. They're taking you to the place that's best for them and their energy. But what you need to actually do is learn that you yourself can actually cross to the other side without the aid of another. You don't need to get on the boat. You can literally wade across, swim across, whatever the obstacle is. We are empowered to do that ourselves and not be waiting for another, whether it's by boat, by horse, whatever the obstacle is. It's to actually learn that we are Christ-like in that capacity to do whatever we need to do whenever the time comes.
To back that up, a lot of people say that the light of God is within us, whatever their higher power is.
Yes.
So, or we are in their image, which in turn means that we directly descend from them, which in turn means that our DNA has of godlike composition, whether it be half or some, or we're genetically similar to what God would be because we are made in His image.
Yep.
If we're
even
following,
if we look at Genesis, like just taking like standard logic that we were taught, way back in the day. I don't even know if they teach that anymore.
right? But here's another school of thought with that too.
Go ahead.
Hear me out on this, and I might be totally off by this, but we know that to every position there is an opposition. What if this particular person, Saint Germain, not saying there's others throughout time, is sent here to make you believe that, and then to go into that river and your soul is sucked into an ever-ending eternity
I can follow. I can very much follow that as a fair.
He is the ultimate trickster, which in turn would be Loki.
I can follow that logic, and both avenues are absolutely worthy of study. And I would say that my avenue of study has made me choose sides.
Of course,
Yeah, I have a bias for sure, but
everybody is.
Yeah,
everybody is because of what you've learned. Your brain discerns things differently than mine does. So there is a logic that my brain follows. There's a logic that your brain follows. Some people are more skeptical. Some people aren't. And it's okay because who knows? Maybe both paths lead to where you want to be. You get what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely. I think you would probably agree that you have found more truth by digging for it and putting in effort than by information that is more readily available and promoted.
Yes.
So
but there's also duality to that, which is called Occam's razor, which is probably the most easiest answer. Is probably the right one.
Right. But
so there's two schools. There's like two schools.
Hold on. You're using Occam's razor wrong. It's one of the most misrepresented situations. Occam's razor, it was not intended. It's actually incorrect.
Well,
Occam's razor.
Simple, stupid. Is that what it's?
That's not true. That's not logical in reality. Just because you want something to be simple doesn't make it so. Occam's razor is the misconception that people always go to, the convenience of thinking that something is always the simplest result. It's comfortable to think that way, but just because you have a problem presented to you and you can reduce it to what is the simplest solution, there's absolutely nothing in the numbers that promotes that as being the highest outcome. It's actually a misconception of Occam's razor. We're doing it inappropriately all the time. Things are typically actually more complex than when we initially look at them. If you're going to look at something at first glance, you're going to get a surface value assessment of it, and that's Occam's razor, the simplest solution.
Well, that's why they say likely, but it
It's
doesn't mean
not
it's
likely.
always
It's
true.
completely wrong. It's completely unlikely to be the simplest solution. People are using Occam's razor inappropriately. It's actually more likely going to be way more complex because you're going to have to look more deeply to something.
So what does Occam's razor mean then?
Ah, damn it. I have it in a book. I'm going to pull it up. I have a book
Yeah,
called
because I've been
50 of the
using it
most
that way, and if
50
I'm
of the
using
50
it
of the
wrong,
most important philosophical terms was a book given to me years ago as a Christmas present, and in there it explains the misuse of Occam's razor. I'll pull the book up. It's in my library. I don't want to run downstairs right now.
no, you just let
but
me know when you can, because I've been
Absolutely,
using it,
absolutely.
and I want to make sure that I'm in
Yes,
the right by
yes,
using it.
yes, absolutely. I get that,
Well,
Rob.
then we'll stick to the phrase "keep it simple, stupid."
Keep it
if we
simple,
have to
stupid.
use
I like that idea, but that has more to do with still being hopeful, right?
I
Like I'm a
think that
trade
has more to do with like investigations on a sense of who done it,
keeping things organized. It's great for keeping things organized, right? But it's a
right?
misconception to think like I'm a tradesman, right? So if I walk into a boiler room and the boiler doesn't work, if I immediately go to Occam's razor and keeping things simple, I'm exclusively looking for what can be the easiest remedy. It doesn't mean that's the remedy. It
Well,
could be
that's
a
true.
wildly
That's true.
complex problem. And I'm
That's
going to
true.
miss it if I walk in there and I try to troubleshoot from an angle of Occam's razor and keep it simple. It's
Well,
not
here's
being
the thing
realistic.
too. Here's the thing too. Occam's razor, I'm sure, if you're going to use it in the way that I projected it just now, you wouldn't use it for things that you know are going to be super complex.
Mhm.
It would be more for something that's, like I said, somewhat of like a who done it kind of investigation.
Right.
Like, let's say there's a murder, right? So by stating that most murders happen by somebody close to somebody,
Mhm.
we can. I'm not saying that there's not a possibility of
Mhm.
some random passerby or murdering somebody,
Mhm.
but I want to say maybe not 9 times, but more like 6 times out of 10, there's crimes of passion come into play,
Mhm.
right? So keeping it simple, stupid, are the most likely person to do it. I
Mhm.
believe that's once all the evidence has presented itself. If you use it in that manner, you should be able to navigate. And maybe I'm wrong, but you should be able to navigate
Your
where all
your
signs are
logic is
pointing.
sounding correct. It's just inappropriate to take that term and put it to it. It's like red is red and blue is not red. So you're describing a process that's very accurate in the appropriate way to troubleshoot and diagnose things. It's just unfortunate.
So my terminology is wrong.
The use of Occam's razor is incorrect there, unfortunately.
I want to know what it is now.
I-
Damn
It,
it.
it has more to do with being methodical. It has to do with the process.
Really?
So it's like
Like,
you're taking a process and you're slicing it like thin, like you're looking at each single possibility. It's actually looking at every single thing.
so it's more like a probability question in the
Yeah.
sense that, like, when you're looking at so many different things that you really have to, uh, I don't even know.
Just think
I'm confusing myself right now thinking
yes,
about it.
Rob, just think about it simply as you've been presented colloquially, right? Currently, you're using this term, Occam's razor, to mean that odds are, most likely, anytime something has an issue, it's typically the simplest solution. Listen to when you hear that. It doesn't make sense at all. You're generalizing that every time you have a problem, odds are it's the simplest solution. What? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it kind of does.
It could be way
It
more
kind of
complex
does.
than that at any given time.
Absolutely right.
There you
That's
go.
not, it's not saying that, but that's why it's a likely thing, and I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I'm not
There's
saying that
probabilities
I'm
and
right or wrong,
possibilities. Mhm.
but 9 times out of 10, when you're looking at things, and let's say you're looking at something in research, right?
Mhm.
And you've seen this 1,000 times before, but then again, there's also the point of seeing it 1,000 times
That's
before. You're
experience that you're
predicting,
calculating in there, so it makes it
right?
easier. If you're
Right.
taking someone that
So
doesn't have that experience and they have to
I like
troubleshoot it.
breaking this down. This is fun. Like, this
Yeah,
is fun
totally.
doing that
I
because
love word games and
it
etymology
really
and stuff
is
like
like, because it's when you say it, you're supposed to say likely, like it likely happens like that. But I guess if you're looking at it from the position of human condition,
Mhm.
likely humans act out in specific ways, and we know that
Mhm.
by
Likely
study.
likely requires previous experience in the circumstance, and at that point you don't need Occam's razor. You have your own experience. You're not trying to figure things out at that point. You already know.
Wow.
Occam's razor is a process when you don't know. You're trying to figure things out.
Right. You
so
have
you're
to be
slicing it
completely
apart.
oblivious to it.
One razor slice at a point. You have to figure it out piece by piece by piece. You don't know. You're trying to figure it out.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
I like that. That was a good time. I like that stuff because you know what? It comes down to conjecture, and
Mhm.
your point of view was different. And now that you say it in that way, it makes sense to me. And
Mhm.
sometimes people need to hear those things to make sense of specific situations when it's dictated back to you from a different point of view.
And in the
It
real
makes
world,
more
I've
sense.
seen people get jammed up on that, like literally in a troubleshooting process in a real world environment, trying to figure out equipment. They're so focused on it. Well, it's got to be something simple.
Well,
What if
no,
it's
no.
not?
That's the thing is when I use it personally,
Mhm.
I'm probably saying it from a point of experience. I'm not saying it from if I didn't know anything about it, because I'm telling you, if I didn't know anything about it, I'd be all over it in every aspect I could find before I made any decisions on
Here's
it.
here's a simple one that most folks can wrap their head around, right? Your car doesn't start, right? You wake up one morning, you go out to your car doesn't start. Of course, you want to think it's something simple. Maybe it's
The
the
battery,
battery. Yeah, it's the battery.
immediately,
It's the
the
alternating
battery.
cable. But for all practical purposes, there's more than one thing wrong.
It could
It's
be a
just that on
misfiring cylinder, and
it
that
could
goes
be
all the way
anything.
back to
It's
the
just that on
engine.
that you could have had 4 things teetering on failure for weeks or months. And then you could have a total collapse of one thing on that day, and now your car is not doing anything. But if you're going to go and you're going to immediately say, it must be the battery, Occam's razor, keep it simple. You go waste money on a battery, you put it in there, the car doesn't start. Now what?
People are going to do that anyway. And
Absolutely.
let me tell you what you just did too. You actually helped out. You should be a service writer for a mechanic because you just literally sold like 17 different pieces to anybody that's coming through the door.
Mm,
You're going to tell them, well, listen, you explained it properly too. You like the most, it's not, you may think it's just a battery, but
mm,
you came in, it was the oil pan, it was the spark plugs, it was the wires,
mm.
it was the plugs, it was the engine, it was the
Yeah.
cylinders. Now you owe us
You could have had a
7 grand.
bad ground on the cable that caused the battery to go out. You're going to change the battery and have a bad cable again. The battery's going to go out again in the future. Or there's 2 other things. It's really hard to troubleshoot something when there's more than one problem.
It,
It's like try to figure out why the heat doesn't come on in a house. Is it a bad thermostat? Is it a bad circulator? What if the circulator was going bad, but now all of a sudden today the thermostat didn't come on, but now you can't bleed the system because the circulator is no good. So you can have a lot of things going wrong. Things can be totally complex all the time.
you're looking at complex questions too.
No,
Let's let,
I'm just no. These are simple situations that turn complex. Simply, the heat's not on. That would be the customer's call. The heat's not on. It's a very simple problem. But now,
but
how
then
do you
it,
bring
but
the
then
heat back onto a system that's dead when there's more than one thing that's the matter?
here's the situation too though.
Mhm.
That sounds simple by just saying the heat doesn't come on.
That's the gripe.
But if you look at the systems that produce the heat, those are complex. So
Absolutely.
on the surface level,
Mhm,
it seems easy, but
mhm.
it's complex. Now let's just say, and I'm just going to keep trying until this fucking thing works. I'm just playing here,
Go
but
for it.
so let's say it's a simple problem
Mhm,
with a simple answer.
mhm.
That might work
What might work?
if it's a simple like. Oh no, because
That's
there's too
just
much.
it just
It's
is what it is.
conjecture. It's conjecture because I'm saying something
Mhm,
that doesn't actually exist in that frame of mind.
mhm.
I'm trying to make it work, as you say. I'm trying to make it work, and
If
I'm
it's
saying
simple,
something
it's
it's
simple.
not.
If it's complex, it's complex. Occam's razor makes complex things simple when they're not.
Well, it shouldn't do that. It shouldn't do that.
Understood. That's the error of Occam's razor is reducing everything to being simple for the convenience of it. It
Yeah,
isn't necessarily
that
that
makes sense.
simple.
That makes sense when you say that. What else out there that people misrepresent like that? Like I've been
Oh,
doing because I've been
by and
using that.
large,
What's that?
the term by and large is used
By
wrong all the
and
time.
large.
Yep, it's an
I,
old
ha-
spelling term. People say by and large right now, and they use it
I,
in a situation where it means for the most part,
right,
and that's
right.
incorrect. It actually means always. When someone says by and large, it should be defined as something meaning always. And it's an old sailing term. And it was when ships became constructed of such a size that even with the sails down, they still caught the wind. So they would say that it sailed by sail and large, just on its vessel size, by and large, by sail and its
because
large.
the surface area was still
Correct.
enough of a wall
So
to
it was like a
push.
sales pitch. Instead of a car salesman, it was a freaking boat salesman. This baby will sail no matter what, by and large,
That's
always.
These are fun.
Yeah.
These are really fun. I like doing these too because it seems like, that when we talk about these things, it's just people have preconceived notions of what they might be.
This
And
is
when
this
it
is
comes to light, it changes the reference in which they're thinking about these things because, like, I've been using that for probably the last 4 or 5 episodes because I heard it and I heard what somebody dictated to me that it meant.
it rang a bell with you.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And now to find out that it means something different, I want to like read more about it. But you see, this is what takes us to this research, right? And this is why people need to do that research. And this is a prime example of me the one time not doing the research. And
Who would have known? I mean, it's not a matter of not doing the research.
no, 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 no. But I'm just trying to make a point with it. You see how when people go into conversations and they do this, 9 times out of 10, they're going to like see how we had that open conversation where you said, no, it's not used right. And I said, okay, well, then how is it used? And I absorbed that information. A lot of times people would be pigheaded and I would look at you and be like, nope, you're wrong.
Yeah, no,
You're wrong.
this is what we
So,
need nowadays. This is what the masks are
right.
preventing. It's just
Open discourse.
human conversation where we don't even necessarily have to agree. It doesn't even have to be amicable, even though it is. But you have to be willing to engage again, right? I like to think that, like, if you and I were neighbors, right? If I live next door to you, we're going to see each other all the time. We're going to have
All the time.
conversations. It does not mean that we're going to agree all the time. It does not mean that we're going to leave with smiles every day, but it does mean that I'm going to engage you again tomorrow, and
Of course.
I'm going to respect that you have an opinion, and I'm going to respect that we don't always have to agree. But I think there's so much value to these old, just like kitchen counter conversations. You get out of work at the end of the day. Hey, Rob, how'd your day go? Oh, here's how my day went. You know what I did? And then you turn to me and you go, Eric, maybe you shouldn't have done it that way. And I go, Rob, how dare you say that? And you go, here's how dare I say it, because one time I did it this way and you should try it that way. And I'll be like, oh, I might get mad or something like that, but that's just life, and I try what you did or not. But either way, I see you the next day in your driveway washing your car or something. And still, hey, Rob, how's it going?
Exactly.
It's
And
just life.
it's open-mindedness. It's being able to take what other people tell you, maybe at first surface level or face value,
Mhm.
and trying it in a process or looking into it to see where the fault lies, whether it be one side or the other, or where the facts lie. And this is one of the things that this kind of discourse is missing
Mhm.
from society. And one of the things that takes away is what we're looking at right now.
Mhm.
Facebook, Twitter,
Mhm.
Instagram. It's not even words on Instagram. It's just pictures.
Yeah.
So people perceive other people's lives by these candid moments of a snapshot.
Yes.
Yes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but unless you know the person, that picture isn't telling you as much as you should be knowing about that. You get what I mean
Fine.
by saying that?
We were designed to dialogue with each other in person. I mean, it's great that we have this digital aspect because I wouldn't see you otherwise. But I'm only doing this because I'm not allowed out of my house to go see human beings anymore. You know?
Well, right, right. But even before that,
Mhm.
uh we were so like into just being online and being available to read comments with. And that's the other thing about looking at when people write things down, right? It's just like getting a text message. When you call somebody on the phone and they tell you, you know, I got to think of an example because it's going to be good and I'm going to make this very profound. When you get a text message, it could be like, hold on. It could, I want to phrase it right so it comes out properly. Words that you read don't always have emotion behind them, right? So you could say something to somebody like, you know, I got my car fixed. And when you get that in a text, it just says, I got my car fixed. Oh, that car cost them a lot of money. But on the other end, they're like, I got my car fixed. Finally, we have the air conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's this loss of emotion between balance
Yes,
and this dialogue that you use in type form. And I feel that the wires get crossed in some places because of this aspect. Instead of picking up
absolutely.
the phone and talking to somebody where they can hear the different pitches in your voice that would display emotion to them,
Mm-hmm.
you can take things out of context because there is no emotion behind just a typed word.
It destroys me, the mediums that we have now. I am a human being. I enjoy communicating with human beings. I'm learning. Here's stuff you asked me way at the front end of this conversation what I'm learning in my research. I learned I'm a Heyoka empath, which is a particular breed of empath. And it cripples me to not be in contact with people for communication
You
because,
need that contact.
yep,
That's what a Heyoki
I, I'm
empath
I'm
is.
I'm dysfunctional without an actual human connection. Text is useless to me. Everything is almost always 180 degrees of what people meant is how I receive it.
All the time.
I
All the
cannot.
time.
I cannot get a read on reality if I can't. If I'm disconnected from. The further I am from my five senses and engaging with somebody, the harder it is for me to grasp what they're getting at. I have a desire to help people. I have a desire to understand people. I have a desire to engage, dialogue, communicate, but this does not allow for that technically.
And one of the other aspects of this too is you see how you need that contact. There are people out there who are locked in and they don't understand that they need that.
Mhm.
So they go into these fits of anxiety and
Yes.
depression and they get sick a lot and they don't realize
Mhm.
that this component is making them, and I hate to say this in these terms, weaker by contrast,
Mhm.
right? So what that means is that there is this there is this plan to divide and conquer on so many different levels, right?
Mhm.
And we play into it by using these machines all the time instead of talking to somebody on the phone or using these simple ways of communication
Mhm.
because they're easy. Sometimes, like we were just talking about, you need the complex.
Mhm.
You get what I mean? Like you need that that
You need that moment to troubleshoot, to put your brain
right
on that. You need to chew on that problem
the
and tackle
stimulus
to
of it.
get to get yes, the stimulus of it and the satisfaction of accomplishment. When all is said and done to have overcome the problem, it gives you a good strong feeling inside.
And here's the difference with that too is your brain works on chemicals that is like a reward system,
Mhm.
right? So when you delve into this low point and these little things are giving you that, like somebody hits you with a like on a post and you're like, yeah, another like, awesome. Like your reward system changes. So you expect less and less.
Mhm.
And what that does is it cripples you. It cripples you to not be able to really shoot for those large synopsises that fire
Mhm.
when you accomplish those big things
Mhm.
or those complex things because those little gratifications are taking the place of that gigantic gratification that'll ultimately help you to be successful in the long run and also keep you sharp and on point. You know, it's I hate it. I hate that we're going towards this route. I really do. And it's crazy. I say I hate it. And you would think that me saying this, that I wouldn't fall into this category,
Mhm.
but I do. And that's where the divide and conquer comes in, where
Mhm.
they want you to have these little rewards instead of these big rewards because they're separating you to control you in so many different ways,
And
you know?
regardless, the rewards are coming. They're doing is making them the issuer of the reward.
Hmm.
That's the real trick of it. Large, small, medium, whatever it is, they don't want you to have control over the satisfaction in your life.
It should
And
never be about the reward. It should be about the work in between
mhm,
the rewards. If you focus on the work in between, I promise you, your rewards will be bigger, more fruitful, and longer lasting when you achieve them.
And that's true too. But if somebody's going to abscond the fruits of your labor so that you don't have control over it, I mean, it doesn't really matter how much work you do at that point. If you're just going
Well,
to keep
that's
working and
also
working and
true.
working, and somebody else has control over the benefit, I mean, that's kind of where we're going right now with this communication issue. Is it almost seems like we're being separated from each other, because I don't think that we are the first people to understand the value of human exchange. I think that we've just been distracted by things like mortgages and day-to-day operations, and that there's other factions that are happy to cause division and wield that. It's everybody's afraid to get out of their houses right now. They're afraid to engage in the old fashioned way of communication, and now we're stuck to digitally monologuing for the most part. I mean, you and I are in real time live time dialoguing right now, but that's still technically a rarity. Most people are jumping onto some social media platform, and that's monologuing back and forth. They're not engaging and they're not dialoguing. They're not communicating anymore. There's another medium that's digital, that's an in between. Technically, all the human beings are now communicating with something that's digital. It's not a human. That matters.
It does. And what happens, which may actually happen within the next week or two here, everything goes down. What happens? Then what? You can't be by yourself or satisfied with picking up a book and maybe reading it or talking to your neighbor like you should be, instead of hiding your emotions and everything else and keeping that to yourself. What do you think is going to be the repercussion if all of that stuff goes down?
Freedom is the truth. It's going to be a big
Eventually,
mistake. No,
eventually,
almost
because,
immediately.
well,
It's a big
yes, but
mistake. The powers that be believe that the electrical grid and the control mechanism is the thing, and that they believe that upon shutting it down it'll cause rapid pandemonium is the belief, and they're wrong. What they're going to get is everybody realizing they're free and that they didn't need those things.
well, here's my take on that.
Mm-hmm.
At first, it's going to be a shock. Eventually, the freedom will come once they realize that freedom is there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many people who have vested in this form of technology that
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be about a half of the population, maybe even more, completely lost for at least a week, just lost and devastated to the point where they almost forgot how to do this.
I understand that logic 100%, but there's also stuff that there's pros and cons to everything.
Of
Okay.
course, there's
So that I
upsides
would,
and
I would put that,
downsides,
I would put that right on the
duality of
cons list.
everything.
Yep, I would put that right on the cons list. You are correct. There's going to be that idea on the cons list, but the pro that people won't be able to appreciate until it happens, because they haven't experienced it yet.
Well, it's true, right?
Right? They haven't experienced yet what it actually means to be in a grid-free environment and the benefits of the energy and the exposure to that reality. You may recall shortly after 9/11 in the northeast area of New York, there was a massive power outage. Massive. Remember, everything went down for the whole northeast quadrant of the U.S. And the pandemonium that you're talking about and the cons that you're talking about actually didn't occur, because the pros that I'm talking about happened faster. People actually just felt the benefit of the grid being down, and they just got together and did what they needed to do. And it wasn't the pandemonium, and the power was out for quite some time.
Well, actually, it happened this year too. We
Oh,
lost
okay.
power after a storm,
Okay.
and we actually had like a little gathering in the parking lot. So I understand that too.
For some
But
reason, it seems like when the grid goes down, everybody's energy goes up.
well, here's the flip side to this too, right? That's for people like me and you. There are some others who don't know differently. The younger generation doesn't know different than
Mhm.
what this is.
Mhm.
Therefore, they were never taught that skill of reaching out to people. Also, there's those people who don't live near anybody and
Mhm.
they live all by themselves too.
Then
And
they're
now
not
they're,
negatively impacted by the grid, and they're already good folk.
well, that's true. Some,
Mhm.
but some are different. Some are
I
different.
get it.
And there are people who are of a young, I believe that the younger generation was not taught like we were. You know, we used to go out and play,
Mhm.
ride bikes, do this, do that, do all these things that had nothing to do with technology. It had to do with our physical and athletic progress,
Mhm.
right? So we have a different side. So it's actually tough for us to see their side of it
Absolutely.
because we're into it,
Mhm.
but not to that level,
We had a legitimate actual sense of real adventure, not digital adventure and
right?
virtual reality adventure. We grew up on bicycles, and we had boundaries, and your parents told you, you can only go so far. But that's when your parents were looking. So the next adventure would be, how far can you go on that bike?
Well,
How
exactly,
deep into the
exactly.
community can you go before you get totally lost? And you're like, oh damn, now I got to figure out how to get home before my mom finds out, because I'm gonna be totally screwed if I miss dinner, because here it is, I'm 6 years old and I'm totally not supposed to be where I'm right now. But that was what we did as kids for adventure, because we didn't have cell phones and laptops. We
Right.
would go
Well,
get
there
lost.
there
We
are
get lost
some.
in reality.
Right. There are some who don't fit that bill, of course, with every generation or every generation. There are people who don't fit the bill of most, right?
Mhm.
So we'll conceptualize that too. But our reward, just to put this in lay terms, our reward was to climb to the top of a mountain physically and literally. Their reward from the time that they can remember was picking up that controller and beating that level or getting to the end of that game and
Mhm.
finishing or unlocking that achievement or that special sword or that suit or that special player.
Mhm.
That's all they know.
Mhm.
And that's why, I would suggest to those people to do something about that. Not that they can help it. What I would suggest is that you put that game down and go on. They have these retreats where they take you through these physical, literal activities, adventures, with different rewards at the end of each of them,
Mhm.
right? Like, I would suggest you find these trips and take them. And once you figure out that there is more to what we're doing than just this digital reality or this digital realm, it will impact your life 180 degrees.
Mhm.
I truly believe that. I truly believe that. And we are also, me and you are different than some of the others from our generation too, because I feel that we're okay grabbing a book and just sitting there and with enough light by the sun to go outside, get fresh air, and just read the book. You
Mhm.
get what I'm saying? There's
Absolutely.
people who really can't do that.
Mhm.
They really don't feel that achievement by doing that, you know? And it's sad because it's a way that reality or society is pushing us to be. So, I feel that maybe people need to explore more of their own reality. I think that that's something that everybody
Big
should
time.
do.
Yeah, they need to increase the diameter of the circumference of the world that they travel in. A lot
Agreed.
of people have very small circumference of the area that they move about in. I mean, I'm from Long Island. I'm aware that a lot of Long Islanders do not spend a lot of time off of Long Island.
No, and Long Island is wild too.
Mhm.
There is a lot of people who literally only know Long Island. You told them that you went to the city, and they're like, "What?"
What would you go to
They've
the
lived,
city for?
right.
What would you leave
They've
New York for? What do you mean you went to another country?
they've lived on Long Island for 50 years and never went into Manhattan
Mhm.
ever for no. There's no reason,
It's
but
unbelievable how often that happens.
it's crazy. It's like I think it might be only like a New York thing. I really do.
It very
Like,
well might be. I'm not sure, but again, like, I'm from Long Island, so I know my perspective is limited. I mean, granted, I left a bit ago, but I can look back at folks that I know that are there, and I can see the blinders that they maintain, because they do not have a broad perspective. It's very limited of what they've seen, what they've been exposed to, what they're willing to look at or discuss.
and that's why they take things at face value when they're told over a digital box
Mhm.
that that's what reality is.
Yeah,
This
actually,
is
they have
why
to,
we're
because
kind of
they don't
we're
have
in
a
this
reference point of
situation now.
perspective.
This is why we're in this situation with reality right now
Mhm.
because they're not doing their own. There's a sense of accomplishment when you literally look at your when you take the reality that you see on TV and debunk it for yourself, or you take these mainstream thoughts or
Mhm.
what people perceive to be mainstream thoughts, which for me and you are totally different in the sense that we know a different level and we know the underbelly of some of that too. But for people who don't dive into these things or these so-called conspiracy theories, which we know are conspiracy fact, but when you don't look into these things, you know, I forgot where I'm going with this, but when you don't open up your mind to that, what you see in front of you might not be the actual truth. You, it's a solemn life, man. It's not the same as
I find that to be intellectually crippling for people to just accept what they're told on
that's
any level.
exactly right. You lose all thought process of your own free will and junction. Like
Mhm. Because then at
it's
what point are your thoughts your own? If you're just going to believe what people tell you and continually do that, like it's for argument's sake, playing devil's advocate. If you were that person, right? If you were just simply taking everything everybody told you and receiving it and believing it, and now you're going to engage me in a conversation, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to everyone you met.
so true. So
And I
true.
see that nowadays in so many people I meet. I'm not meeting a person. I'm meeting the people they met.
You're meeting their superficial alter ego,
Yeah,
is what you're meeting.
yep, they're not going to tell me what they think. They're going to tell me what they heard. Heaven forbid they calculate or formulate an opinion that they have to stand behind or support. No one wants to do that nowadays. They can't handle being wrong. They can't handle a new thought, like like a gentleman earlier. I mean, we were just discussing. I mean, I want to be corrected if I make a mistake.
Of
I look for
course.
that stuff. When someone teaches me something new, I thank them. I'm like, oh, I had no idea. Thank you. You
I
taught me something
thoroughly
new.
enjoyed our conversation back and forth, dude. I literally like smiled like that was awesome. Like that was awesome. I was wrong, but I found
Mhm.
this dynamic that, like you said, everybody can be checked, but you have to be able to accept the checking. Like,
And I
and
can't wait to run downstairs when this is over to go grab that book because at least you cared, So
of
now
course,
it's
I
like,
want to be right. I
I want
always
to
want to
make
be
sure because now I called checkmate, so to say.
right.
So now
Right.
I want to make sure, and I want to have this conversation and discuss it because I want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Of course, but that's the exchange of ideas. That's what we're missing.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you feel a specific way, stand behind it.
Mhm.
Stand behind it and don't be afraid to express it, no matter what anybody says.
And this would have been a great exchange if we were neighbors, right? Because I totally would have ran home, grabbed the book and a
Oh, we
beer,
would have
and
been
came
outside
back
for
and was
fun.
like, dude, check this out.
And I would have been like, let's make a fire. Let's
Uh-huh.
read this book. Let's find more in this book so
Mhm.
we could keep going. Because it would have been, we would have turned into like an everyday thing.
Yeah, yeah.
We would have found facts and be like, oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Did you
Yep.
hear about this? I
Mhm.
love that stuff, man.
Mhm.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
That's the
Iron
difference.
sharpens iron, and a friend sharpens a friend.
That's right.
I heard that from another guy on
That's right.
YouTube. That's a great poster.
And like you said, if I am wrong, I tell everybody, tell me, but don't just say you're wrong.
Mhm.
Back it up with something concrete and say, well, this is, and sometimes it's not even about being wrong. Sometimes it's just a different process of thought and different schools of thought
Mhm.
behind the same thing. So
And
you have to
you know,
understand
and
that
it
too.
is what it is. I mean, I'm not looking to put someone in check for the purpose of putting in check. I just hope somebody actually has the desire to be correct.
Of
And you just
course.
find out because
Of
again,
course.
back to the job site, right? I'm a tradesman. If I'm doing something wrong, wrong is wrong. And if someone sees me doing something wrong, I want them to tell me. It's obligatory because if I'm doing it wrong, that's their job to tell me. I don't want to lose an arm. I don't want to hurt somebody else. If I'm making a mistake,
Well,
fucking
not only
tell me.
that, you'd have to go back and redo the whole job. If it
That's
was
true too. That's just straight up dollars and cents of it. Yeah, like I don't want to make a
right.
mistake and cost me money either. But
Oh,
worst case scenario is if it's going to get me hurt or somebody else hurt, then somebody needs to step up and do the right thing. And we have to have the responsibility to actually admonish people and make corrections when it's required. It would be wrong if we were neighbors, if I was watching you do something wrong, to not say something.
Of course, because like you said, ultimately it could lead to my death or me being hurt if it
Mhm,
was, especially if it was like lawn stuff or
mhm,
like a lawnmower and
mhm.
the thing is still on and I'm trying to grab under the blade
Who knows?
like
Yeah,
a jackass,
yeah,
I mean, things like that.
yeah.
You
And that's
have
the
to be
bigger
able
deal
to,
stuff, not
yeah,
just the smaller deal stuff. Like if I see you talking to someone and I'm like, man, Rob, bro, what were you saying? Like, that's obligatory too. Like you would want me to do that and vice versa, because I wouldn't want to get caught with my pants down in the future either.
of course. And like I said, and like you said, the biggest thing is to be able to formulate your own thought,
Mhm,
be able to put it out there.
mhm,
Because if you have your own thoughts and you keep them all to yourself,
mhm,
what's to say that one of those thoughts isn't a groundbreaking thing that could change the world? You're doing the world a disservice by not putting your thought out there. And also, if you do put your thoughts out there like that, you leave room for a conversation or discourse.
mhm.
If you don't talk to anybody or you don't say those things, you're shutting down any other ideas that some people may have for you that may help you in turn. You help them, they help you. That's how this works. That's what being a human and being constructive of each other is, and that's what the term iron sharpens iron means.
And I appreciate your kudos for me in that position, but you definitely had the higher road, because technically it's the reception of the criticism, and doing that is the harder part. It's easy for someone to give an opinion. It's hard for someone to receive that opinion.
Well,
That's the
of
more
course.
challenging role.
Well,
And
here's how it goes too. It's also ego that was involved because when I say it, I want to be right. Like
right, right, right.
of course, to be fully transparent too.
This is like stuff up in the article on the North Slope where I work. Safety is a big deal because we're very remote. No, like you can't get medical assistance and stuff like that. So safety is very key. And what we always tell people is, if you have to stop the job, and that basically means, like, if you're working and you're doing something wrong that's dangerous, I'm obliged to tell you to stop the job. That's the easy part technically, but the problem is that doesn't really happen as often as it should, because normally it's not received that well. If I walk up and I'm like, "Hey, Rob, you're not doing that right," you get that, "Oh, don't you tell me I've been doing it right." So what happens is, because the reception doesn't occur, the transmission doesn't happen anymore. So up in the work environment, when I get involved with safety, I don't harp on the transmission, I harp on the reception. And I try to make people, I remind them that the day will come that you're going to make a mistake and someone's going to put you in check. And please make sure you receive it well.
I agree with that
That's
100%.
that's the hard part. And you did that very well today, Rob. So my hat goes off to you, because it just is what it is. We're all
Well,
trying to help each other. And it's a matter of
exactly.
that understanding.
I appreciate that too. And when I talk to people, and this is how I see it all the time. No, regardless of whatever the conversation is, usually something is said profound between those two people, whether it be me or even listening to two other people's conversation. And it leads me to different like roads of thought by listening to different perspectives on things. Because here's the reality of it, right? Life is perception. Our reality is how we perceive it. So for me to be the best I can be at all times, I have to be able to take and give. I've got to be able to do both because if I'm not able to do that, then I'm just giving.
Mhm,
That's pompous. Or I'm just, I'm like thinking that my school of thought is higher than anybody else's. That means when I'm doing research that whatever I perceive to be the end result of all this research is fact.
mhm,
That is no way to go about doing research because you're not fully grasping the concept at that point,
mhm.
and I try and live my life by those terms too. And I respect you too. So when you say something like that to me, it's like, okay, let me understand it. Let me see what he's saying, or at least listen to what you're saying to see if I agree or if I don't agree.
Yeah.
Just to that's the start of it. But I like to be right too, because my ego gets inflated when I'm right, and when I'm not right, I feel a little like, oh man, like, damn, I could have been right on that if I
My
would have
girlfriend and I
looked into
talk
it a little
about this
more.
one too because we're constantly putting each other in check. It is a weird thing, and we
Hmm.
have this conversation regularly. And there's a difference between somebody who wants to be right and somebody who wants to be correct. And we use the terminology differently, and the way we discuss it is that ego is someone who wants to be right.
Right.
The other aspect is someone who's just trying to be correct.
Well, I stand corrected then because I want to be
It's
correct.
just our preference. It's our preference. Those are the terms
Of
that we
course.
use, and it makes us comfortable. But I see the dynamic that you're saying because there is a difference. There's like it's appropriate, I would say, to want to be correct all the time. It's
I
different
agree.
to say you want to be right all the time.
Uh, when it comes to fact, I would prefer to be correct because while I'm giving people information, I want them to have the right information. So,
Yeah, same here. I have a strong desire to be correct.
right.
Mhm. Yeah, see, right?
Of course. Well, I mean, if you're going to be on a platform and you're giving information, I
Mhm.
don't want to steer anybody the wrong way.
Right?
So I don't want to be big-headed enough to say, what I think is ultimately it, and that's that. No, I want to be correct
Mhm,
because I could say something where I am completely wrong
mhm,
while thinking I'm right,
mhm,
and then they take that with them and go to the next person, and there so goes the domino effect.
mhm.
And now something that isn't correct is being perceived as right, and it keeps going and going and going and
Yep.
going.
And then it becomes the telephone game in history, and next thing you know,
Exactly
we
right.
find out 100,000 years from now, the world is ruined because of some misinformation that got quoted by Rob Yox eons
Wow.
ago.
That's a hard pill to swallow. But hopefully it's a red pill, god damn it. All right, we're at that time of the show. I appreciate you, Eric, man. It's always so enlightening when we have these combos, dude.
It
I
was fun
truly
talking.
love it. Truly love it. You're welcome back here anytime you want.
Mhm.
And I appreciate you. And I
Thank
wish you all the best
thank you
with
so much.
First Earth Militia and Deciphering My Experience.
It should be a blast, Rob, and I look forward to more paranormal talk as well in the future. It's a fun topic.
Yeah, it's fun. It's definitely good. And I am not uh I'm not defined by just the paranormal. I love all topics of conversation. So
Mhm.
whatever you got for me, man, I'll take it anytime you got it.
I like stuff out of the ordinary. I like knowing what people like to learn more about and why. That usually
You know what?
fascinates me.
I'm going to say this then. In the comment section of this broadcast, tell me what you would like to learn. Tell me what you're fascinated with, and I will do more research and bring a show to the forefront about that specific topic. If there's multiple topics, I will do multiple deep dives to as far as I can get to bring these topics to you in their entirety as best that I can.
And if I could wet your whistle, you've been talking lately, I've noticed about time travel, which is a topic I adore. So anytime you
Yes.
want to talk more about time travel, you let me know. I'll be happy to jump in on that one.
Absolutely. It's like time travel, dimensional shifts, and because, and I'm gonna take 2 minutes extra and go and tell you this. This great awakening is happening at such an exponential mass of individuals that not only are we seeing perceived effects of possible time travel to the root of what the issues are right now, and we're also seeing extra dimensional and when I say extra dimensional, I want you to understand that I also mean dimensional as in planes of existence from like 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D.
Okay.
Uh, so that's what I
I
mean
can
by
follow that.
dimensional as well,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So there is an influence,
Mhm.
or the awakening is leading to a evolution to transcend this particular place in time and space right now.
Mhm.
And from this moment, or from, a little while ago, from that moment forward, we are on a path that is going to be just truly dynamic and truly enlightening to so many different people. So I'm trying to focus on the root of it. Like, where did it start? Right? was there, and I truly believe, and I'm gonna, when I get all the information that I can speak on it completely intelligently and be almost in the correct as far as I see it, or at least my opinion on it, I will bring it to the table and say yes, because I do believe that there is some kind of time travel aspect to it. And I want to cross my T's and dot my I's before I present it on a full scale level
Mhm.
out here. But I
Look
would
forward to
definitely
that
keep you
day.
informed of that.
I totally look forward to that one.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome.
Mhm.
But yeah, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank the audience for joining us. Please check out Eric's show. It is on Mondays from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. First Earth Militia. Also, check out his YouTube channel, Deciphering My Experience. You know what? Anything? Any last words you got before we run out?
Now that works for me, Rob. You can find me on MeWe as well if you want to communicate. That's about it for now. I look forward to chatting more, and I really appreciate the time we had tonight.
Awesome, awesome. Had an awesome time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. On that note, I am Rob Yox. That is Eric, my esteemed co-host for the evening. Great gentleman, and I will see you all next time you enter my universe. So, for on that, get in your spaceship and get the hell out. See you later.